Just a few days ago, on September 1st, Mustafa Suleyman, the co-founder of Google DeepMind and current CEO of Inflection AI, dropped an absolute bombshell on the internet and then walked away like a mic drop, and nobody seemed to notice. So I'm here to fix that. So here's what happened. He wrote an article in Time magazine online, and the title of the article is How the AI Revolution Will Reshape the World. The TLDR is that AI is about to reshape and reshuffle all power structures in the world. Now, let me read just a couple of the quotes from this article for you. You can check it out yourself. It's really short. It's 6,000 characters long, so like 1,000 words. But anyways, so these two quotes really stood out to me. It's not just automated call centers. This wave will fundamentally reshape and reorder society, and it is those with the most to lose, reliant on established capital, expertise, authority, and security architectures, who are precisely the most exposed. And then later on in the article, he goes on to say, I've seen this kind of willful blindness before. I call it pessimism aversion, a tendency to look away from sweeping technological change and what it really means. Until recently, it was a common affliction of the Silicon Valley elite, many of whom pursued technological disruption without considering the likely outcomes. So a couple other key points from this article, which again, it's on Time magazine, it's Mustafa Suleyman. I'm not sure why people are not losing their minds for this. Power redistribution. So he's talking extensively about how this technology will disrupt the existing power structures and redistribute it. He's talking about how AI is unique in terms of technological advancements. It's not just another iPhone moment. There's a few reasons that it's different, and that primarily led by the democratization of technology. It's getting more powerful, it's getting cheaper, and it's getting faster. Not only that, it's advancing faster than any other technology we have seen. And then he goes on to talk about the power reshuffling, basically the unprepared professional classes, which is a big reason for the work that I do. When I talk about post-labor economics, we need to start preparing for an era where middle-class white-collar jobs are the first to go. And then he talked about pessimism aversion, which is basically this is something that a lot of people criticize, rightly so, Silicon Valley, for looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. And then finally talking about need for preparation, which again is why I'm here. Okay, so check out the article if you want. Pause it. Like I said, it's really short, or just take my word for it. But like I said, it's very straightforward. So here's the analysis. Let's break it down. New ownership models. This is one of the key things that keeps emerging. And of course, there's a lot of people that are talking about cryptocurrencies and DAOs and that sort of stuff. So blockchain technology could be an ingredient in new ownership models. But as I've talked about how AI will likely destroy jobs and disrupt markets, one thing that we're going to see is that, and I'm not saying like, oh, we should, get Comrade Marx up and, seize the means of production. I just use this graphic because I think it's hilarious to use the anime filter. Anyways, here's how new ownership models are going to actually emerge. First, shrinking margins because tech is going to drive down prices. As margins get narrower, a lot of companies and sectors and industries, they're just not going to be viable anymore. And what I mean by that is they're not going to be profitable from an extraction capitalist model. Instead, they're going to be so cheap that you might as well just have them as municipal services. So there's been a few people that have messaged me that are talking about, rather than focusing on universal basic income, one of the things that we'll see is universal basic services. So I've talked about hospitals in several videos where I expect that the margins of hospitals are going to become so narrow that they're basically not going to be feasible as for-profit entities. And so they're just going to have to be provided by the government the same way that the government just provides roads. So universal basic services, shrinking margins. Another thing is that as some of these goods and services become too cheap to be viable business models, it just makes sense for them to transition to collective ownership, either run and managed by municipal governments or by collectives of private individuals. Whatever happens, but the underpinning thing is that automation and the decentralization of AI is going to be one of the primary drivers, and basically necessitate this. And it's not like I'm not saying put the cart before the horse. I'm not saying, hey, burn it all down and start over. I'm just saying a lot of goods and services will need to transition to new ownership models as they become unviable. Democratization of information. Basically, AI is the realization of what the internet promised. And so for those of us that are in our mid to late 30s, we remember when in the 90s, the rise of the internet, everyone said it's the information superhighway. And of course, no one has said information superhighway in like 20 years. But the idea was that instant access to all information on the planet was going to completely change the world. And of course, it did change the world. But having hypothetical access to information and being able to practically use it are entirely different things. It's kind of like when the Human Genome Project was done, and it's like, hey, we've mapped the entire genome. Now what? Well, we can't make heads or tails of it, so it doesn't really matter. So it wasn't until we had more modern artificial intelligence to look at genomic data to make sense of it. So in other words, what artificial intelligence really does in terms of access to information is it makes it much more accessible and it allows you to make sense of it. And this basically is a superpower for everyone. Okay, so the preparation part. Mustafa and I both agree we need to prepare and we are not yet prepared. So here's some of the things that he talks about and that I talk about. This is our overlap. So the number one thing is accountability and transparency. We need to make sure that we start using AI in government and accountability and transparency as soon as possible. So some ideas I have for this is legislative review. I have quite a few videos that I did last year using ChatGPT and other API calls to slice and dice and read new legislation and bills and proposals that are coming out. This is a really good use of these tools because nobody's going to take the time to read a 600-page piece of legislation every single week as this stuff comes out. But AI is more than happy to read it for you, and it can read it in about 30 seconds. This is going to be a really good superpower that allows us to stop fraud and corruption of people slipping stuff into legislative bills. Voter advocacy. So this is something that a lot of people have started talking about in various sectors, which is, what if you have an autonomous AI agent that advocates on your behalf around the clock on all issues that you care about? So this idea was, it existed before OpenAI's project on the democratic inputs to AI, but democratic inputs using either autonomous or semi-autonomous AI, that just makes sense. It can help solve the coordination problem and ensure that everyone gets their needs met. Basically, the rest of these points are just kind of delving a little bit deeper and rehashing some of these ideas. So I'm not going to bore you with reading everything to you. The second thing is decoupling production. So this is what I mean when I talk about post-labor economics. What's going to happen, whether we like it or not, I'm just saying that because it is inevitable, we should advocate for it and make it happen deliberately, is labor reduction. We use AI and automation to get people out of jobs altogether. What are we going to do? We're going to spend more time with friends, family. We're going to spend more time with civic engagement. We're going to spend more time with our hobbies, so on and so forth. Now, the biggest problem with this, and this is what Mustafa is alluding to, is that this will absolutely destroy white-collar jobs, most white-collar jobs. And it is possible that some jobs will come back or that some new jobs will be created. But as I've mentioned in my recent videos, AI is proving to be better, faster, cheaper, and safer than humans in a lot of capacities, and that's only going to get better with time. And so the primary way that this disrupts the power structure in society, and not necessarily for the better, is that the power of labor declines. Our ability as laborers and consumers declines. So what does this mean? I actually saw some people posting my videos on Reddit, and they're saying, okay, well, if all this happens, how are we, the people, going to even have money to buy goods and services provided by companies that hold all the cards? The biggest thing here is that we need to negotiate a new social contract. So the current social contract says that the government mediates the relationship between business and labor. That is the way that things work because businesses rely on human labor, and the power dynamic between those three entities basically says, the government says, hey, I'm going to play referee and make sure that the businesses get what they want and need, and that the people get what they want and need. We've been under neoliberalism for about 40 years now, which means that we've strongly favored businesses. The pendulum needs to swing in the other direction. Why? Because labor is about to go out the door, and so instead of business, laborers, and government, the new social contract is going to be between business, labor, businesses, government, and citizen. Sorry, I probably said that wrong. I think you get what I mean. So by reshuffling and restructuring the power dynamics of our society, instead of around business, labor, and government, now it needs to be business, citizens, and government. It needs to include everyone. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope this got your juices flowing and you're ready to be engaged. Vote like you mean it, because, well, that's what it's all going to come down to, is we the people taking power back and choosing politicians that understand this and advocate vociferously on our behalf. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.